Black women should bow their heads and mourn. Why stand tall? The officer growled, leveling a revolver at a black woman during a burial. He barked commands, trapping her among floral tributes. No reason, just her skin. He misread everything. He didn't know the woman before him was General Adrian Langston, mid-50s, esteemed within military corridors. This time, justice would uphold valor. When a badge cloaks fear, who defines righteousness? What land protects you? Arlington stirred, cloaked in dawn haze. Flags sagged at half-mast in the crisp March air. Boots on brittle grass cut the quiet like a blade through fine linen. Rows of black-shrouded chairs awaited a family rigid with sorrow. Eyes locked on a flag-draped coffin. Children donned small uniforms. Adults bore polished medals. Silence reigned. This was a military burial, hallowed, where private grief yielded to singular honor. No rustles, no murmurs, only ritual breath honed in discipline, holding all upright without apparent effort. A black SUV glided through a side gate. Its rear door parted. Polished boots touched soil. Guards saluted reflexively. The woman emerging bore a general's insignia, earned through decades beyond reproach. She carried a small urn swathed in black. Adrian Langston arrived alone, without fanfare, only the urn meant to rest beside a fallen soldier's coffin. Her face was calm, eyes unwavering. Her silent stride made onlookers stand, not from fear, but reverence. A general came to pay respects. One man stayed seated. Officer Troy Varnell, perimeter security lead, struck the SUV's hood sharply, disrupting the solemnity. Wood clattered as a young flag-bearer startled, dropping his staff. The cemetery stilled. A child whispered, "Is he shouting at her?" The mother lowered her gaze, saying nothing, her hands gripping black cloth to hold grief intact. Langston's eyes moved from Varnell's raised hand to his slate-cold stare. She didn't retreat. He blocked her way, disdain gathering, challenging her rank to hold weight. "Thought you were with the mourners," he scoffed, eyeing her stars like trinkets, not a general's mark. Guards exchanged looks but stayed rooted. Langston opened her wallet, presented her ID with measured precision, steady as a frozen pond. He barely glanced. They craft these well now, especially for folks trying to prove something. A gasp, a gritted jaw, or a stifled sob rippled. Langston pocketed the ID, stepped nearer the coffin. Varnell blocked again. Restricted area. No clearance. An elderly veteran, once a major, murmured, "Are we honoring a soldier or honor itself?" The words barely carried, striking silent chords. No one stepped in. People weighed if the system would back them. Wind softened. The flag settled like a hymn. Langston stood still, boots one step from Varnell's. No anger, just resolute calm. A stillness fiercer than contempt. He flinched, then steadied. "I can demand. You don't get to reply. Without orders, you're out. Stars don't protect." He claimed to guard honor while scorning her medals, believing none. A sigh faded along the burial line. The flag-bearer retrieved his staff. A child watched, sensing a rightful presence pushed aside. Langston held the urn like a vow. She didn't beg or seek permission. She stood, a living line in a funeral split by bias, power, and fear of her claiming sacred space. The moment hardened around a hand unfit to wield a gun. Truth grew louder. Langston's silence solidified. Varnell mistook poise for rebellion. He lunged forward, snatched her ID with a rough pull that rattled her jacket. He held it to the light, inspecting it like fake currency, then spat near her polished boots. Everything froze. The honor. Guards' march paused mid-stride. Suspicion turned to intent. A young white corporal leaned forward, ready to speak. His sergeant's hand rested lightly on his shoulder. Not now. In uniform, that meant duty, not retreat. Varnell still clutched her ID, tilting it like a flea market find. Good forgeries, Atlanta, Detroit. People buy them to feel important, especially when they can't earn rank. His words grated like steel on stone. Nearby journalism students quietly began streaming the standoff. The phone captured Varnell's face, the ID, the urn, and Langston's steady gaze. The 4G signal stuttered, but soon the clip hit a veterans forum with a searing caption, Cop vs. 4-star at burial. Langston said nothing, her silence piercing. She stepped closer, breath close, voice low, cutting. You're not questioning a card. You're questioning if someone like me belongs. No storm, just cold precision. He faltered, not from guilt, but from a strike delivered without drama. He clung to rules, insisting ID didn't prove identity. Verification was his alone, unresolved. The trap wasn't hers alone, it pulled the ceremony into his personal mire. Phones lifted, not to call, but to capture disgrace dressed as vigilance. She reached. He held her ID a moment longer, craving control's final sip. Then she pulled firmly. Metal clicked her nail, sharp as a blade. She turned, leaving him speechless. A notification pinged. Cop vs. General. 1 or 20,000 watching. No orders, no chance. The mother in the front row stood, stepped toward the coffin. She didn't glance at Varnell. She met Langston's eyes and nodded, as if sealing one right and beginning the one honor demanded. The funeral's true narrative shifted. Langston advanced. Neither rushed nor hesitant, boots grounding cracked earth, carrying the urn steady as a promise. Each breath drew a boundary. Each step asked, who truly belongs here? Varnell growled, voice dragging like iron. Halt now. His hand gripped the revolver. Sudden metal scraped the silence raw. The sound didn't belong. Everyone heard. No one believed. Langston held her ground. The muzzle aimed at her chest. The coffin's flag stirred once, like honor refusing to kneel. One more step, and it's a threat, he hissed, arms rigid. The cemetery held its breath. No words, no motion. Waiting to see not what happened, but who the system would hold accountable. He shouted, stop, so loudly a portrait fell, shattering. The fallen soldier's photo rolled to Langston's boots. A captain yelled, everyone back. No one moved, for stepping away would admit a cop could draw a weapon in a military cemetery, and none would challenge it. A major stepped aside, eyes on the coffin, not conceding, recalling why he came, to honor, not to bless a drawn gun. Langston didn't bend for the photo. A bowed head could be misread forever. She kept the urn upright, a ridge between violence and honor. She met Varnell's eyes. If I fall here, the nation will know why. Heartbeats faltered. Not a threat, but testimony. His hand held firm. His gaze broke. A boy whispered, Mom, is he afraid of her? The question pierced facades. The breeze lifted the flag's edge like a wound in morning black. In this place, guns shouldn't exist. Yet one did, and only a woman's unyielding stance stood between it and finality. No one screamed. The scene needed no words. It stopped being cop versus general. It became honor versus power. One ready to endure, one ready to fire. Between them lay a soldier's death and justice's fragile survival. When the wind stilled, the flag settled. Cracks under Langston's boots felt seismic. Her gaze fixed on the photo, caught between muzzle and commander. Breaths went silent. Tension rose regardless. A gray-haired 3-star to her left leaned on his cane, hand shaking. A tear fell, not fear, but shame for his era's long silence. Don't, he whispered to no one. As long as you stand, we might still save the system. Old, not frail, not pleading, simply judging his time. The cracks weren't bullets. They were permissions given to the wrong hands, spread across years. Langston heard but didn't turn. Her eyes stayed where honor frayed beneath a gun. In the military, not everyone aims. No one aims at sacrifice. Varnell's jaw clenched, sweat traced back over his brow, realizing the silence no longer obeyed him. A drone buzzed above, lens fixed on his face in slow, deliberate focus, etching sweat, twitch, profile into permanence. He couldn't aim at it or silence it. He stood like a crime not yet named, exposed by 1,000 unblinking eyes. Behind the honor guard, a young soldier unzipped a pack, lifting a spare flag. Contingency, prepared only if someone expects ritual to break. That word, backup, said enough. The unit had braced for honor to be disrupted. Twice if needed. Langston shifted her heel, then set it back. Not retreat, not advance, holding her urn steady. Her chest bore medals pinned by 3 presidents. But what anchored her was chosen. Duty, not a claim. Varnell's voice thinned, fearful. You're provoking me. If I feel threatened, I have the right to act. His words fell like an unspent shell, useless on impact. The older general turned away, unable to watch a man claim a funeral justified his fear. Integrity choked. Dust thickened. Every particle heavy. A dry leaf settled by Langston's boot. Time moved. The system didn't. A distant horn sounded, ignored. Witnesses understood. Today's next chapter wouldn't be written by press or politicians, but by those present. They would carry this: how a gun appeared before a coffin, how a general was barred from honoring a soldier. They would raise children differently. Silence was imprinting them. Varnell scanned faces for permission. None came. Shoulders slumped. Authority unraveled. A soft click. Military security unholstered weapons. 2 officers in tactical vests stepped forward. Hands steady. Voices even. Lower your weapon. Command cadence. Non-negotiable. Varnell scoffed. Political theater. You think this is a script? Silence answered, no longer reaction, but judgment. They disarmed and cuffed him with practiced calm. He realized too late. Guns don't belong at military burials. He lifted his chin, stared at Langston. I know exactly who you are. She didn't look up. He left like a hollow monument. No cheers, no applause, no pity. The silence was heavy, shared. Shame settled. Why didn't we act sooner? Langston stayed with the urn, eyes forward, the broken photo at her feet. The soldier's smile endured in shattered glass. No one lifted it, learning to face silence's consequences. A white-haired Korean War veteran rose, cane tapping stone thrice, echoes ringing like chimes. Today, morality shifts a page. Heads bowed, not to him, but to truth exposed, faces broken like mirror fragments, eyes shut, composed. Everyone knew they'd shaped an indelible moment. 1 second to draw a weapon where only drums, flags, and grief belong. No talk of errors or reviews. No promises to investigate. Evidence breathed. The ceremony resumed. The honor guard reformed. A new frame replaced the broken portrait. Motions followed protocol, but faith in sacred ground had fractured, not by a bullet, but by permission stretched too long. A mother clutched a folded flag. The boy beside her asked no more questions, fingers creasing cloth. The volley fired, sharp, cold, slicing silence like knives. What lingered wasn't ritual, but what came before. 1 second to lose everything. 1 second to expose rot tolerated. Langston's stillness forced the system to choose, complicity or reckoning. 1 hour. Later, the nation flinched. Within 6 hours, America asked, who is she? Her name, face, and record emerged, not uncovered by media, but unearthed by inevitability. General Adrienne Langston, first black woman to lead 3 tactical combat units, held at gunpoint at a military funeral. She once led a nighttime extraction of 18 Americans from a Hellman prison, including a Texas congressman's daughter who opposed integration. A photo resurfaced, Langston kneeling under fire, bandaging a wounded corporal, front page news. Now, a general faced a gun. America stood trial. No sensationalism needed. Facts chilled. She led 6 covert operations, survived a Kabul ambush, carried 2 wounded across her shoulders. Twice she declined promotion to stay in field command over a Pentagon office. Her name trended on forums, Reddit, X, not about politics, but how could this happen to her? Why couldn't anyone stop it? Funeral gun standoff surged within 7 hours. A veteran wrote, never seen our military shamed like this, or a general bear disgrace with such honor. A war journalist recalled Langston's voice calming troops in Fallujah. A conservative senator defended Varnell's protocol check, claiming any perceived threat justifies action. He didn't expect his Marine son, stationed in Guam, to post at midnight, "Dad, she carried me from a blast zone." Stop excusing the inexcusable. Debate faded. A general, a gun, a nation learning the cost of borrowed power. Foreign press weighed in. Le Figaro called it a wound to American dignity. The Times saw a clash between politics and honor. The question persisted, who is she? She stayed silent, 36 hours, no press, no statement. She filed one document with the Department of Justice: "I will testify as a witness, not a victim." No lawyers requested. One sentence shifted the nation toward law. The DOJ replied within 6 hours. A brief release: unjustified armed force by an officer in a national military ceremonial zone under investigation for human rights violation and desecration. No briefing. Key words rang like sirens: unjustified, desecration, federal. For the first time, overreach wasn't in a city street, but charged within the military's holiest ground. From within the ranks, more gravity. Over 35 active generals petitioned for public proceedings to defend the institution's moral line transparently. A retired 4-star wrote privately to the Chief Justice, "Those who served under Langston know what's tested. This isn't personal honor. It's national legitimacy." The other side assembled counsel. Varnell hired a lawyer known from Capitol riot defenses. At his press conference, the attorney didn't apologize. He declared, "Duty validates authority when security feels at risk." Not defensive action, but a feeling, a sharp argument in emotional times. Veterans coalitions issued a rare joint letter: "Don't turn justice into political theater. We don't care about party lines. We care that a funeral became desecrated." Pressure mounted, deliberate, unyielding. A leaked pre-funeral security briefing surfaced. A voice, allegedly Varnell's: "If someone off-list enters the ceremonial line, I'll handle it right there." The clip spread in hours. The Attorney General responded, "I care," why he thought he could. Public outrage turned to resolve. Langston stayed quiet except to the Assistant U.S. Attorney: "I didn't come to be defended. I came to see if justice stands when no threat exists." The indictment followed. 5 counts, each a hammer: weapon use in a protected ceremonial zone, racially motivated threat, abuse of authority, obstruction of military rights, desecration of a national service member's dignity, the last carrying potential life without parole. Hearings were ordered fully public. Federal Courtroom 3 in D.C. was designated. Records preserved in full. Jury shielded from interference. The law shed choice and took up duty. No soft apologies when guns meet uniforms at graves. Consequences would speak plainly, not ceremonially. Away from courts, a letter traveled from rural Kentucky. A mother's hand in black ink. Clara Hensley, whose son, Staff Sergeant Nathan Hensley, died on the Iraqi border, wrote, "My son died for America. America broke its vow at his funeral." Not an accusation, soft, piercing, precise. "He told me, if I die, ask General Langston to speak." They blocked her from his coffin. That line shook the media. A friend shared a diary page, stained with dust and sweat. Nathan wrote, "If I fall, I want Ms. Langston to speak. Her voice over mortars kept me steady." No screenwriter could craft that. No justification could defend a drawn pistol barring her from his coffin. At St. Luke's Church in Alabama, the Hensley parish held a prayer vigil, not for grief, but for guarding living honor. A hand-painted sign read, "We pray for the values that once anchored this nation, not to reclaim, but to remember." No TV crews, no officials. 40 mostly aging veterans knelt at wooden pews. No one named Langston aloud. No condemnations. Their eyes agreed silently, this must not pass like others. The presiding priest, Father Elias Moore, was invited to bless the local police afterward. He declined, "I can't bless a place that aimed a gun at honor." A small refusal, grace withdrawn. Public anger became current. Veterans reorganized gatherings, not about campaigns, but dignity. Stories surfaced like old scars. A New Mexico soldier said, "I've seen comrades die of hunger. Never saw a general barred from her soldier." The incident stopped being a case. It became a generational reckoning. Witnesses handwrote accounts, gestures, pulses, small tremors. Academics called it a slow moral awakening. A society jolted awake. Because honor isn't abstract, it's an urn kept from its rightful place. On Black service member forums, a phrase spread, "We've waited too long." It needed no explanation. Silence around Varnell broke. Those who weaponize authority against honor always leave traces. 7 days post-indictment, leaks from his department emerged. Among dense files, a 2013 complaint in his own hand, addressed to Fort Hood's military district. This unit favors black soldiers. In the margin, scrawled, "If someone like me can't serve, they don't deserve to be called soldiers." No one replied then, but Arlington's spark made people look back. Roots weren't bureaucratic, they were ideological. Someone denied honor, seeking to reclaim status by stripping it from those who embodied it. An old interview clip showed him, "When the system's rigged, breaking rules feels just." Asked to clarify, he said, "If I wasn't chosen to serve, I'll guard the gate." At the time, few noticed. Now, paired with a gun at a funeral, the line read like a plan, not a rant. Resentment turned policy. His psychological evaluations noted, flawed value system, reactive toward those surpassing his standards. Not a diagnosis, a narrative. He didn't hate losing. He hated winners he believed advanced by routes he rejected. Investigators found a notebook at his home. For read words inside, "I will take back." Same script as his 2013 complaint margin. Behavioral analysts called it nurtured grievance, honed sharp. Colleagues recalled patrol shifts. When a black commander oversaw, he'd mutter about politics outpacing merit, patterns now clear. Not a man pushed to error, but one waiting for a stage. Irony placed it in a cemetery. Monday morning, Federal Courtroom 3. No phones, no tie adjustments, no coughs. The room held a nation's gaze, a mirror unclouded. General Langston entered, not posing, not scanning cameras. She walked like someone who'd crossed deserts under fire. Crisp uniform, 4 stars gleaming, full medals, not for show, but to ground truth in a distracted age. Blood-bought words aren't rewritten lightly. She raised her hand to swear. The clerk read her name, age, rank. Invited to sit, she said, "I'll stand." Not loud, just unyielding. Today, she wouldn't sit in a courtroom where injustice had too often stood. Varnell's attorney, Victor Henshaw, 50s, lean, sharp smile, approached without a question. "Wearing your uniform to make people forget you were the one wronged." She didn't flinch. "I wear it because the one I'll speak for can't." He pressed, "Are you here as a witness or a political figure?" She unbuttoned her jacket, placed a small box on the stand, a bronze star, earned quietly. "I bled. I nearly died. I left part of myself behind. I need no sympathy." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Langston didn't read notes. "I'm not here to list campaigns. I'm here because someone drew a gun in our holiest place and aimed it at the person who kept Americans alive behind enemy lines. I've faced Taliban fire. I lost a finger to a grenade. I'd never had a gun aimed at me until I wore my uniform on American soil." Silence thickened. No one could feign coincidence or ignorance. A white male juror exhaled, not fear, understanding. They wouldn't judge mere right or wrong. They'd decide if enough honor remained to call the verdict justice. Henshaw tried again. "Some say you're being used, emotions bending law." She tilted her head. "Where? What emotions?" "The public's anger." She answered, "They're angry for me. I don't have time for anger. I'm busy standing, so they don't have to bow to a broken system." Truth stood alone. The room grew quieter. No camera clicks. Paper rustles faded. Attention narrowed to 2 people 4 steps apart, one in uniform, spine straight, one in jail orange, wrists chained, eyes hardened by old grudges. The judge called the confrontation forward. Varnell spoke first, smirking faintly. "Real combat vets don't flinch at an unshot pistol." Langston unfolded an aged Iraq map, edges worn, rain-stained. She marked Mosul, an ambush survived, no contact for 2 days, 5 extracted alive, including Senator Hayes' son, who later argued against prosecuting Varnell. No gasp, just a moral tremor. Varnell chuckled, metal on glass. So you can fight, but can't handle being targeted. Breath held, not at wit, but audacity. She didn't flinch. I don't refuse targeting. I refuse to bow. Not a rebuttal, a judgment passed beyond the defendant to anyone believing honor yields to a trigger finger. The lawyer started. The judge's glance silenced him. Langston stepped to the evidence podium, lifting a printout of Varnell's 2013 complaint. This surprised me most, she told the jury. He didn't draw because I was a threat. He drew because he didn't believe I deserved the uniform he never qualified to wear. She looked at him, not with scorn, but clarity. That wasn't just a gun. It was a hand that never earned the right to hold it. She bowed, not submission, but duty complete, and stepped down, needing no applause, only daylight. No one clapped. No winners, just clarity. This trial wasn't about the men who drew a weapon. It was about those who refused mirrors. Varnell sought power not for honor, but to be feared. He wasn't competence, he was infamy. He learned to slip through gaps, armoring himself in disdain. Newsrooms first highlighted his standoff with Langston. Then they dug deeper, finding a system that waved him through. One leak exploded, a 2015 school camera from Raleigh, grainy but undeniable. Varnell. Then a school resource officer shoved a black father during pickup, muttering slurs off mic. No charges then. Today, the footage read like a prelude. Audio engineers clarified his words, needing little imagination. Administrators had called it a misunderstanding. Parents recalled otherwise. Permission granted. Deference demanded. Arlington reframed the past, not an outburst, but a pattern unfolding in daylight. Editors built a timeline, ignored complaints, waived counseling, transfers masked as career moves, glowing reviews when oversight rotated. The pattern wasn't chance, it was institutional reflex. Varnell wasn't a rogue storm. He was a systems weather, built by neglect. Reporters called ex-colleagues. Off-record voices painted a man who revered the badge but despised limits. Meticulous with paperwork when it shielded him, allergic to scrutiny when it bound him. He didn't bend rules, one said. He sharpened them. A civic panel convened, televised, unspun, prosecutors, chiefs, a chaplain, union reps, a Gold Star mother. They agreed on little except, power hates empty seats. When good people stay seated, ambition with a gun rises. The union rep cited contracts. The chaplain quoted conscience. The prosecutor recited statutes like prayer. Viewers felt a shift, less outrage, more resolve. Arguments landed. The lesson was simple, stubborn: sacred spaces need protectors, not gatekeepers. Meanwhile, the courtroom's docket moved like steel tracks. No fanfare, just filings. Each motion peeled another layer from Varnell's defenses, revealing not strategy, but habit, procedure as camouflage, not covenant. The judge rejected theatrics, speaking sparingly, noting where policy failed, where oversight blinked. We will try conduct, she said, and, by necessity, the culture that let it fester. The sentence carried weight the room felt. A whistleblower emerged, a records clerk, 14 years. She described evaluations rewritten before signing, complaints buried, red flags folded into mentorship. She wasn't bitter, but precise. Her dates matched emails. Her folder tabs aligned with ledgers. Defense tried to discredit her with an old reprimand. It backfired, she'd reported her own error. Jurors recognized the posture, accountability sharp enough to cut, honest enough to trust. The ledger didn't just accuse, it illuminated a path. Military families began writing essays, handheld videos uploaded without profit. Rituals don't protect themselves, one wrote. People do. Another, if the uniform doesn't shield dignity at gravesides, it's just cloth. They weren't trending, they were bedrock, heavy, unavoidable. A theologian turned colonel penned a line shared across bases: reverence is a discipline, not a place. Cadets marked it like gospel. Arlington proved a paradox: hallowed ground can be violated by footsteps claiming to defend it. Varnell's lawyer leaned hard on perception. He felt unsafe, he repeated, smoothing edges to fear. The tactic shown in headlines, dulled under oath. Fear without evidence is superstition, paired with a gun, it's policy disguised as instinct. Langston reappeared only for depositions, answering cleanly, leaving swiftly, passing microphones like obstacles. Her absence elsewhere became presence, an outline so steady commentators stopped projecting and started listening to the record. The Senate scheduled hearings, blending ritual and oversight. Generals testified plainly. One presented an empty chair draped in black, reserved for the fallen. "No badge outranks this seat," he said. Cameras didn't blink. Neither did he. A major described the burial drill, timings, paths, clearances, so vivid viewers felt the march in their bones. "Movement carries meaning," he said. "You don't disrupt meaning with fear." A staff sergeant added softly, "Our dead teach the living to act right." Clips of Langston training recruits resurfaced, calm orders under pressure, breathe. Check. Act. Civilians adopted the rhythm. Parents used it during tantrums. Medics whispered it in chaos. A conductor posted it backstage. Discipline reached where salutes couldn't. Defense's polling expert showed outrage fatigue curves. The graph dipped politely. Then Clara Hensley's letter spiked a new wave, less viral than vital, threading through homes, churches, kitchens. Her single line pulsed, "You broke your promise at his funeral." A policy memo leaked, draft revisions to ceremonial security protocols. Vague terms like operator discretion became prohibited. Training hours doubled. A new rule, ritual precedence overrides civilian unrest. It sounded old-fashioned, but read essential. Police academies invited chaplains and buglers. One trainer said, "We're teaching thresholds. Some places change who you are." Trainees practiced slow steps in rooms with folded flags, learning restraint is a muscle, too. A recruit wept, unashamed. On base, cadets debated courage, is standing still braver than charging? A field officer shrugged, depends who's holding the weapon. They wrote essays on negative space, what you refuse to do becomes the loudest act. The syllabus felt alive. The drone pilot who filmed Varnell testified, a nurse by trade. His footage stayed steady because his hands knew steadiness from hospital beds. "I wasn't chasing drama," he said. "I wanted a record no one could twist." Prosecutors showed frame by frame, hand to grip, draw, muzzle line, not cinematic, but mapped. Jurors leaned in, tracing a terrain of choices. Each inch mattered. Each pause preached. The weapon was a sentence. The silences around it were arguments. Varnell testified, his voice dull with practiced resentment. He spoke of losing ground without losing anything, mentioned respect while trampling it, described protocol like a charm. The jury heard spells, not rules. He claimed he didn't see the urn. Photos glowed behind him, urn in both hands, center frame. "I saw a threat," he repeated, flat. The repetition built a wall, high, fragile, echoing only itself. Walls without doors crack. He claimed he feared a rush. Prosecutors replayed Langston's heel lift and reset, 37 witnesses called it stillness. "Do you fear stillness?" the AUSA asked. He stared at the table's grain, searching for one that agreed. Outside, protesters steadied into quiet watchfulness, like sentries at a tomb. A veteran in a wheelchair held a sign, "Honor's weight is lighter than dishonor's excuse." A museum curated a real-time exhibit, rituals, authority, permission. Visitors walked a taped path, paused by a coffin draped in simulated stars. Speakers played measured silence. Some rooms require proof you can be quiet. A think tank proposed an oath for civilian officers on military grounds, 2 sentences, recited aloud. Unions resisted. Veterans shrugged, "We recite longer for mess hall access." The proposal didn't solve, it held the door open. Meanwhile, the young corporal who flinched at the hood slap testified. He described shame, not fear. "I wanted to act. I didn't. That's mine to carry." His honesty lifted something unseen, shared responsibility became lesson, not blame. The sergeant who stopped him spoke next, "Not yet doesn't mean never. It means wait for the moment you can help." He looked at Langston, eyes clear. "She taught me that, not with words, with stance." The jury wrote fiercely. Media tried pitting sides again. The algorithm craved spectacle. The footage refused. No brawl, just contrasts, of poise, choices, what uniforms mean when worn well, what badges become when worn poorly. In closing, the prosecution didn't roar. They read charges slowly, tying each to evidence, pausing at the last: dignity, desecration. We're not polishing stone, the AUSA said. We're deciding if granite means anything when names are carved. Defense invoked doubt like smoke, thick enough to sting, too thin to sustain. If he felt threatened, Henshaw repeated. Jurors glanced at the map, the urn, the drone frames, the boy's question. Feeling detached from fact isn't law, the judge instructed sharply, listing elements, burdens, definitions, then adding a note carved in stone: this courtroom judges actions taken, not status threatened. The sentence steadied the room like a keel. Deliberations began. Hours dragged. The hallway hummed with paper cups and quiet prayers. Langston waited in an anteroom, standing, hands loose. Her aide offered a chair. She smiled. I'll sit when ritual sits. The aide understood. Verdicts returned, count by count. The air could bruise. On the final charge, a juror's voice wavered, then held: guilty. No cheers, no gasps. The silence wasn't empty, it was relief arriving slowly. Varnell sagged, then snapped upright, seeking a fixed point. None waited. The deputy touched his elbow, professional, not punitive. Henshaw gathered files with the speed of someone practiced at leaving quietly. The door closed like a period. Outside, the mother and boy stood together. He asked no more questions. She offered no answers. They watched a flag stir and settle. Grief doesn't end at verdict, it learns where to place its hands without shaking. The Attorney General avoided victory talk. Accountability is maintenance, he said. The word sounded plain. It stuck. You maintain engines, roofs, honor. Let any rot and storms finish what neglect began. Maintenance isn't optional, it's civilization's task. Base chapels filled quietly. That week, no televised vigils, just soft voices. A chaplain preached 5 words: do the slow, faithful work. Cadets nodded, learning speed often misleads. Faithfulness, not fury, holds ritual's doors against storms. The clerk returned to work, same desk, same light, new locks on evidence cabinets. She labeled boxes with stronger verbs: preserved, secured, verified. A coworker brought coffee. You okay? She nodded. I'm fine. It meant the record would endure. At Arlington, groundskeepers filled divots from that day's boots and wheels. Grass doesn't argue, it heals. A caretaker straightened a tilted stone, whispered a carved name, then moved to the next. Langston visited the Hensleys in Alabama, unannounced, unfilmed. She sat at their kitchen table, listened more than spoke, then read from Nathan's diary. Her voice softened on his humor, steadied on his fears. They laughed once, unapologetic. Before leaving, she stepped into the yard, saluted the sky, nodded to Clara: no promises, no platitudes, just wait, woman to mother, soldier to witness. Some gestures don't heal pain, they reframe it into something carryable, like folded cloth. Back in Washington, cadets studied the case, not as scandal, but as curriculum, ethics, operations, ceremony. They wrote after-action reports on silence: when it protects, when it betrays. One line repeated: honor hates shortcuts. Instructors left it on the board. The judge issued a written opinion, spare, precise, citing doctrine, precedent, the unique nature of ceremonial zones. It read like carpentry: joints measured, surfaces trued, load-bearing explained. You could build on it. That was the point. Others would have to. Langston returned to work. Her staff noticed nothing different, except the doorway felt narrower when she entered, gravity adjusting. She needed no entourage, only schedules. We're behind on drills, she said. A captain smiled, the most ordinary sentence imaginable. She sent handwritten notes to witnesses, never using templates: thank you for speaking truth plainly. To the corporal, courage returns. Call it back. To the sergeant, timing isn't caution, it's care. To the clerk, paper saved people today. A historian filed the episode under civil-military relations, a case study for cadets not yet born. He listed its parts: drone, urn, boy's question, judge's sentence, priest's refusal, mother's line. He titled it, When Standing Still Moved Everything That Needed Moving. Policy meetings turned practical, budget lines for training, clauses with teeth, liaisons between agencies, less rhetoric, more checklists. Someone said, "This feels small." A sergeant replied, "Stitches always do until the wound closes." The room grew quiet, then kept working. On a park bench, the Korean War veteran tapped his cane once, twice, thrice, habit now. He watched a color guard practice across the green, precision carrying soundlessly like a vow. He smiled into the breeze. The boy in the miniature uniform slept with a folded scarf beside his bed, dreaming not of salutes or rifles, but of doors opening when people arrived bearing dignity. In the morning, he asked his mother to visit Arlington. They went on Sunday. He brought daisies, placed them gently, then stood back exactly 3 steps, as he'd seen soldiers do. "Why 3?" he asked. "Respect needs room," she answered. He nodded. Solomon 7, learning measurement without tools. Journalism students uploaded a final cut, steady, almost plain. No music, no captions, just time unfolding. Their professor wrote beneath, "We tell truth at the speed it demands." Views climbed slowly, like trust. Step, breath, glance, proof. A new recruit visited the museum exhibit, lingered at the taped lane, then texted his mother, "I learned how to walk today." She sent a heart. He stared at the empty chair draped black, then practiced stillness. A city police chief gathered her command staff. "We turned fear into policy," she said. "We're undoing it." Some bristled, she didn't waver. "If you need a slogan, don't aim weapons at rituals." It sounded absurd until it wasn't. At West Point, cadets debated if reverence can be taught. A philosophy instructor said, "We teach posture until it becomes belief." A plebe replied, "And belief becomes posture again." The room felt like a gym, sweatless, but muscles forming. A brass foundry shipped new nameplates for benches near the tomb. One read, "For those who stood when retreat seemed wise." Tourists sat, unaware. Veterans read, then rose. The sentence felt like a hand on the shoulder. A podcast interviewed the drone nurse. She described heart rhythms calming under steadiness. "We learn to press gently where it bleeds," she said. The host asked if that's policing, too. "It's everything," she answered. Pressure where needed, space where sacred. Langston walked the cemetery alone at dusk, no cameras, no aides, just names etched into a map of debts. She paused at fresh ground, touched the new glass frame. In reflection, a woman in uniform stood smaller than the sky. She whispered a sentence meant for one soldier alone, then set her palm over the carved letters, steadying a picture that holds a room together without fanfare. Her phone buzzed, policy draft approval. She exhaled, not triumphant, but relieved. Maintenance had begun. Passing a lone bugler practicing, a missed note cracked the air. The next rang true. He nodded, tried again, improved. Reporters chased other storms. That's fine. This one settled into doctrine and drill, places headlines rarely reach. The work that lasts prefers fluorescent lights. Someone must count. The bolts before bridges forget how to stand. Varnell's appeal was filed, stamped, scheduled. The gears will turn as they must. No one waited for catharsis. The vital parts had already happened, in standing, in silence, in corrections written dryly. Justice isn't spectacle, it's scaffolding. People stopped noticing. At a small-town parade, a color guard paused before a nursing home. Veterans raised trembling hands to temples. Children miscounted steps, laughed, corrected. The drum line softened. Reverence looked ordinary and won because ordinariness is how reverence survives winters. A librarian shelved the court transcript beside other slim spines, cases that thickened institutions. She slipped a card inside, "Please return better." A joke, then a charge. People laughed at checkout, nodded at home, understood. In a classroom, the journalism students screened their final cut, drone's slow approach, heel reset, handcuffs without jeers. The professor paused on the urn. Your job is to make the obvious undeniable. The corporal who flinched finished his tour. Before leaving, he visited the grave, placed his name tape under flowers, whispered, I'll do better next time. Improvement isn't theater, it's a quiet contract renewed without applause. The sergeant took a training desk, teaching, not yet, like a guiding star. He framed a still of Langston holding the urn, captioned, Strength with a Reason. Recruits copied it into notebooks. The clerk painted her apartment door a bold green. Neighbors noticed. She smiled, easier to find. She meant easier to knock on when records matter. Ordinary defiance looks like a door you can spot in a rush. A chaplain blessed new officers before they stepped onto hallowed ground, asking not for safety, but steadiness. May your hands know what isn't yours to command. The room exhaled like a congregation learning posture. General Langston signed travel orders, tucked Clara Hensley's letter into her briefcase, not for luck, for accountability. She glanced at a calendar, then the map again, routes, checkpoints, risks. The work ahead looked mercifully ordinary. She welcomed it.